Alright, so we're going to go for 5D5, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so we want to be getting that depth on the dip. It's like depth on squats. Initially, when you start to challenge depth on the dip, you could aggravate the shoulder, you could aggravate the tricep tendon. It's very easy to damage those things if the tissues aren't prepared for it. All right, so you need progressive distance training in the same way that we train progressively with distance on things like the Patrick step up, Peterson step up, etc. So we work that top part. Working the top part could look like this. We could be working the top portion. Okay. So you notice if you put the head down, it looks like you go a lot deeper, but keeping in a more upright position, it's going to change the tension and stress on the shoulder and the connective tissues. Both are good, right? The different variations of the dip, facing more chest to floor, is going to bring a lot more pecs in. Kept staying upright, it's going to require more mobility. It's going to be a little bit more of triceps. Progress the distance gradually. Same deal. The thing with resting in the bottom position of the squat with body weight, because of the musculature of the leg, there's a lot more muscles in the legs, and they're, I guess, designed to sort of bear that weight a little bit more than the upper body, the shoulders. So just resting in the bottom position of the dip is quite aggressive with full body weight. You don't need to do it with full body weight. Okay, so regaining the ability to get to the bottom position of the dip is like regaining the ability to get to the bottom position in the squat. You just have to consider body weight to already be sort of like body weight on the back. Okay, so if you wouldn't throw someone straight into their body weight on the bar in a back squat, then they're probably not going to be ready to do body weight dips all the way to this bottom position. You need to give the tissues some time with lower loads to be able to get used to that. You can do that by just keeping the feet on the floor for your reps initially, especially the bottom part. Okay, so you can just be taking the weight off. You can't see my feet hit the floor, but basically spot yourself as needed so that you can start to build some tolerance to that bottom position. All right. Over time then, we're going to be able to load these. You don't have to go crazy with load initially. You want to build that tolerance to volume first, to repetitions, get used to that bottom position. Doesn't mean you can't do lots of reps of that lockout. Doesn't mean that you can't load and do partials. You know, it doesn't make you a bad person. It's just like loading up Patrick step ups, etc. You just want to make sure then that you are doing some stretching. Okay, so treating that bottom position as a stretch. You could do stretches, but I'll just do a light version of the dip. So we're warming up the movement. If you know that there's potential connective tissue challenge within the movement, then warming up with some inner range exercises. Inner range for the pec, really good ones, just reaching across the body. You can get really good pec activation. If you find that your pecs tend to be lazy, you can do banded variations of this if you've got a cable machine. Where that pec is getting crampy, that's where you're going to find that muscle activates very well. Okay, so these positions, neural dominant positions, the connective tissue isn't being loaded at all, but it's crampy. So you're getting a really strong mind-muscle connection. You're getting the nerve linking to the muscle. Okay, so when we think about the inner range stuff, where it's that crampy feeling, then we're thinking about it as a learning exercise. Learning, playing the piano, it's about getting quality repetitions done. It's not getting as many done as you can. It's not training mindlessly. Quality repetitions, focus. We need a little bit of adrenaline. We need a little bit of novelty, something to focus on within the technique. We're looking for that flow state. We're not looking for too much information that it's confusing as anything. We're not looking to be bored, right? If we can find that right level of attention to detail within the movement, that right level of adrenaline, importance on the session, not firing so much that you're going to burn out, but not being completely bored either. Okay. The outer range component then, when we're under that stretch, is not the most stretched that fascial sling can be on. Maybe it's the most stretched the pec can be, but if we add the rest of that to it as well, we'll get even more connective tissue damage. When we create connective tissue damage, when we create a lot of muscle cell damage, we're going to get more mTOR release, which is going to mean, or more mTOR signaling, which means we're going to get more muscle growth. Okay, so this real outer range stuff is where big growth is going to happen, a lot of tissue remodeling. It's also trauma to the body. Okay, so you're causing internal bleeding. That's why the area gets hot. The blood is flushing to the area. Yes, it's rushing fuel there. The body's rushing fuel to the area. Glucose, fat, amino acids to rebuild, etc. They're all getting flushed to the area. I can feel the heat building up in this area as I train it. That's definitely true. But at the same time, there's micro traumas happening there. Okay, the trauma is what's going to really signal for regrowth and remodeling. But there are times where you don't want to signal too much structural change. You don't need to signal big structural change daily. You can train the muscle regularly, but you don't want to get down to bleeding. You know, if you think about the calluses on your hands, the more you've been strength training, the more you're going to have calluses on your fingers, on your palms. That's going to mean you can tolerate more chin-ups, etc. before there's a tear. It's the same with the strength work like this. If someone hasn't been training very much and they go and do this session that I'm doing right now, they could be sore for 7 days, 14 days. The more eccentric loading that we're adding and the more outer range stuff that we're doing, where the fascia and everything is coming under tension as well, then the longer we're going to stay sore for. I could do the same amount of volume with a more of an inner range exercise, like a board press or something like that, where you're just pressing from here. Eventually the tension just matters. Like if it's crazy heavy, but this is not crazy heavy, but because of the range of motion, the range of motion increases the amount of work that's being done, which causes metabolic cost, etc. But that outer range and the tissue damage, tissue remodeling is going to be much higher. It's going to be much more when there's that stretch component to the exercises, okay? So in the ATG system, in the knees over toes methodology, knee ability, the sissy squat is going to be an exercise with a lot of connective tissue tension, okay? So you feel like in the bottom position, it's not even the muscles doing the work, and it's actually not. The same as in the bottom of the Jefferson curl. If you're doing upgraded Jefferson curls, you know, with your toes up, then you're going to find that it's really easy to get out of the bottom. That's because the connective tissue is contributing so much to the movement. And that's why it's often easy to bounce out of the bottom of the hole in the squat. Okay, if you pause in those positions, the connective a little bit less. Now we're going to go drop set. 8.
Activity completed.
5. You say like, oh, you're taking it all the way to failure. You don't have to go all the way to failure, because you're gonna go again. There's a severe metabolic cost to this. You're starting to build up some lactic acid, starting to build up some of these fatigue metabolites. So at the end of your set, give yourself 1 minute, 2 minutes. If you're going quite well, if you're feeling quite fresh, just add a little bit extra to the session, and then I'll be quite confident coming back to this session. 5d6, 10d4 with the weight. By the time I'm doing that, by the time I'm doing 10d7, 5d7 and 5d5 with the weight, you're going to notice some changes in the muscles. Okay, so it's the strength training that drives the body composition changes. It's strength training that drives an ideal body composition overall. It's a myth, the idea that it's 90% diet. It's not 90% diet, it's 90% training. You can out-train almost any crappy diet with the right training program. Now, at some point it matters. If you really try to make yourself as fat as possible, as heavy as possible, like powerlifters do, then sure, you can get fat. But it's very uncommon. It's very difficult to do that. You're going to have a lot of trouble getting yourself fat on this style of training. If you're getting a metabolic component to it, if you're getting a lot of muscle work done, you're getting strong, then you're going to optimize your physique. You're going to put on muscle mass, and you're not going to have to worry about your diet to be able to be in that 8 to 12% body fat. You're going to get there very simply with this style of training. To get 8 to 6 to 5 to 4, then yeah, it becomes a little bit of a different game at that point. But the training has to be that the training is a given. If the training falls away, then everything is going to fall away. So hope you enjoyed that today. If you got a lot out of it, please let me know. Drop a comment, drop a like. Don't be afraid to subscribe, and we'll chat again soon.